Joining us on the podcast right now, he is a good friend of the podcast, been on this podcast many times. I've had the pleasure of meeting this gentleman in St. Joe for Chiefs training camp a few years ago once. One of the best in the business, one of the nice guys you'll come across, and also a highly knowledgeable guy when it comes to the game of football, not just in the NFL, but also in the college ranks. And I would love to do an hour podcast with him, and unfortunately, we just don't have that kind of time, but we'll get to as many questions as I can, because there's always something to learn from this guy. He is the lead NFL writer for Bleacher Report and their NFL Draft Scout. He is Matt Miller, and he is back here on the Chiefs Zone podcast. Matt, welcome back. How have you been?
Man, I've been good. Thanks for having me. And I appreciate all the kind words. It's always fun when I get to stay somewhat local and talk about the Chiefs, talk about what they've been doing, and hopefully I'll run into you again at summer camp this year.
And I really mean that, too. I'm not saying that just because you're on the podcast, and you've done me a favor so much being on here and also being on my radio show in the past. You really do a great job of what you do. First of all, how long have you been with Bleacher Report?
So it's funny. We're recording this May 14th, and 7 years ago today, I quit my day job to take a full-time job with Bleacher Report. So I've been there now 7 years and 4 months, I guess.
That's awesome. That really is. The thing that you do, you really dissect this sport, especially the draft. And you do such an amazing job with it. And you don't always go 100%. No one does with these mock drafts. And with all due respect to your competitors, guys like Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, so many guys out there, if you go on NFL.com or ESPN, you only see first-round mock drafts. If you want 7-round mock drafts, there are not many places to go. You're one of those people who actually goes way deep into this draft, and a lot of people actually appreciate that because, let's be honest, not everybody knows all the 256 guys that are getting drafted and the however many hundred guys that get signed as undrafted free agents. But you really do. You really do know these guys even before they declared for the draft. And you've got such a great knowledge of these guys. What I'm trying to get at here is leading up to the draft, you're doing so much studying of this. And on top of that, you're a father of two. You've got your hands full with so many things in your life already. How much of your days are you spending leading up to the draft just watching game film, evaluating these players? Because you study them all.
Yeah, it's a nonstop process. You know, like an accountant's going to go to work every day, and they might only be really busy, you know, during tax time. And it's kind of similar for me. Like, it's May. There's no football games being played. But I'm going to be in the office today watching film on 2019 guys, or even there's still some 2018 guys that, like you said, undrafted guys get picked up, and you really like their landing spots. So you're like, okay, well, I need to spend a little more time with this. So it really doesn't ever stop. I mean, everyone's so excited about the 2019 draft that I know we're going to want to talk about it earlier than normal this year. So I'll be digging in on even more on guys like Nick Bosa and Ed Oliver and Justin Herbert and Rashawn Gary. I mean, it's just it really is, like, I would say, you know, I write 2 articles a week. I do 2 podcasts of my own a week. Like you said, I do appearances on podcasts and radio shows and TV shows and things like that. But the big chunk of my job is player evaluation and making sure I get those right.
You said it never ends, and it's an ongoing process. There's got to be, and I know in the NFL there is no offseason, but for a guy like you, there's got to be some sort of dead period at some point. When is that dead period exactly for you, and how long does that go on for?
It's now. It really is. You know, the first week after the draft is everyone thinks that, like, the pick 256 happens and I just get to, like, unplug. It doesn't work that way. Like, the week or 2 after the draft are still really busy for me, and then it does start to die down a little bit. A lot of it is, you know, like post-draft recap radio, things like that take up a good amount of time. But right now, I mean, I'm about as relaxed as I'm going to be all year before it starts to get busy again in August. But, man, the NFL is so 365 now, and even that if I'm not, you know, like this morning I didn't have to be into my office early, and it was like, oh, I'm just going to take the morning and, like, you know, walk the dog and read and stuff, and then, like, the Supreme Court news breaks that, you know, it's going to be state-by-state gambling is approved. And that affects, like, my job because I'm asked to do so many different things at Bleacher Report. and I'll be doing a lot more college football this year. So there's always something, even if it's not, okay, today I have to write an article, today I have to watch this player. There's always something that people are looking for an opinion on.
You're a hardworking guy, man. I know you're always going strong, so I definitely appreciate what you do, and definitely very glad that we've got you on the podcast, and we do this a couple of times a year. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, because this is a very interesting offseason, probably the more intriguing offseasons I can recall in a while, but I would say since the Alex Smith addition, and ironically, this is now the offseason where they traded him away. It's a transition offseason under center, which is always a big one. Pat Mahomes coming in. We'll touch on the offense and Pat Mahomes in a moment, but defensively speaking, a lot of people are down on this defense, I think is the best way to put it. And I'm not as down on this defense as some, because I like some of the additions they've made. Of course, Eric Berry's coming back, but so many longtime faces have been let go on this defense. And you look at the draft, every single draft pick was a defensive guy. Yes, McKenzie's going to switch to the offensive side of the football, but the fact that they went after defense the entire draft, I think that really sent a message about what the Chiefs are trying to do in the direction they're trying to go for, what they really thought of their team going into that draft. I want to know from you defensively to start off here, what is your outlook on this Chiefs defense going into 2018?
Man, I think they're going to be young, fast, and aggressive. And like you said, it's going to be a different look without Derek Johnson in there, without Marcus Peters in there. But I think once you get over the loss of those names, Derek is. I'm a huge Texas fan. I'm a huge Derek Johnson fan. He's getting to the end of his career. At some point, you have to get younger. And with Marcus Peters, I think it's a move that the front office hopes at least it can be addition by subtraction. And so there are names like, is Kendall Fuller going to be able to take on a bigger role? What's David Amerson still got in the tank? And like you said, it was such a defensive heavy draft that I think people. It's not just as cut and dry as it has been in years past of, okay, we have a need, we drafted for it, boom, we're done. Because it is a lot of things like Breland Speaks is going to be asked to play outside backer. That's going to be a transition for him, but he's athletic enough, and it's going to be fun to watch him grow. I think the defense can hold its own. I really do. I think, scheme is going to help a lot. The pass rush is going to be the tone setter. And I think we're all going to look to see what guys like Paston Young can do in year two. Justin Houston, if he can remain healthy, I think can still be one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. And obviously Chris Jones is coming into his own at defensive end. So there are a lot of signature players, blue chip type players who could really set the tone. It's just a matter of getting them all together at the same time.
Matt, being a guy who lives in Joplin, you're surrounded by a lot of Chiefs fans. You hear about this probably all the time, or you heard about it during the regular season, and just how bad of a job Bob Sutton was doing from the eyes of Chiefs fans. And I remember Michael Lombardi, I believe he tweeted, I can't remember exactly if this is on his podcast or if he tweeted, and I'm paraphrasing here. He said something shortly after the Chiefs lost to Tennessee in the playoffs, something to the effect of how Bob Sutton has been informed that he's been let go by the Chiefs, and so many Chiefs fans were excited about it, but not so fast. Lo and behold, we don't get a press release about any of that. We hear nothing from the Chiefs. This was never confirmed. And fast forward to now, Bob Sutton is still with that football team, so he is going to be the defensive coordinator going into 2018, provided that no extreme events take place from now until then. I'm curious, what do you think of Bob Sutton? What's your take on him, and what kind of an improvement can he make in 2018 with this defense?
Yeah, I think that is an interesting perspective, and some of that could be because national guys aren't there every day. I'm considered a national guy. I'm not at Arrowhead every day. Not like someone like Therese Taylor who covers the team every day, and he's going to be in there and knows more of the intimate details. A lot of the times we're getting our information from top-level guys who aren't going to throw their DC under the bus. So I think with Sutton, it is a pivotal year. And I know that there's been some talk from people that I talk to up there that they say, getting Eric Berry back is going to be the difference maker. Because, you lose your center fielder, you lose your captain, it makes everything so much harder to do. And you lost also a leader, which is maybe why we saw some of the problems with Marcus Peters last year. But I think that it is a big year, and it's going to be a young team, so there's going to be mistakes made. But at the end of the day, like, are they going to be able to stop the run in the playoffs if they get there? You know, when everyone in the world knows Derrick Henry's about to run off left tackle, can you stop him? Last year they couldn't do it, and some of that's on the players, some of it's on the coaches. So I think it's not just on Bob Sutton, but yeah, he has to do a better job this year.
This is my last question on the defensive side of the football, and I've mentioned this on the podcast a couple of times recently. Going into that Week 1 game to open up the NFL season where the Chiefs pulled off the stunner against the Patriots in Foxborough, the starting inside linebackers were Derek Johnson and Ramik Wilson. Fast forward to today, you've got Reggie Ragland and Anthony Hitchens. Ragland was just acquired right before training camp, or during training camp rather, and Anthony Hitchens was signed right when free agency became official. And those are the guys who are expected to be your two new starting inside linebackers. What do you think of those two guys being the new inside linebacking duo for the Chiefs in 2018?
Yeah, they should be. I mean, the assets the Chiefs gave up to get both players, they should have huge roles. And I think this is the best inside linebacker duo the Chiefs have had in my time covering the NFL. And it's with Hitchens, you're going to get a good athlete. With Ragland, I think he's a little bit more of a thumper, but he also has range. You know, they're both high IQ football players. So I'm a fan. I really do like that. And, you know, most of my friends are Chiefs fans, and they're always like, man, I can't believe we let Derek Johnson go. And, you know, I can't either. It hurts as a fan, but I think getting younger, faster, net cheaper are all the things you have to do to build a long-term contender.
Let's switch to the offensive side of football. Listen, there are so many great players on this offense. You've got Pat Mahomes, of course, who's going to be taking in a new role, and being a redshirt rookie year for him, you're going to need to give him all the help you can get, and the Chiefs are doing just that. You've got Kareem Hunt coming off a phenomenal year as a rookie, leading the league in rushing, and not only that, just about any running back does well under Andy Reid. So you know you're going to have a lot of success in that position. But not just that. You've got arguably one of the best tight ends in the league in Travis Kelce. You've got two good wide receivers. Tyreek Hill, just a dynamic all-around offensive guy. And Sammy Watkins, who I think is going to do a better job in this role with the position he is at currently in his career at the moment. There are so many great guys around him, and I think I echo the sentiments, Matt, of a lot of Chiefs fans who feel this way. The Chiefs are only going to be good as Andy Reid's play calling. And the crazy thing about it is when he let Doug Peterson call the plays in 2015, in the second half of 2015, and late this past year with Matt Nagy getting control of the play calling, well, there was a reason why the Eagles went after Peterson and the Bears went after Nagy. But Eric Bieniemy, the new offensive coordinator, he won't be the play caller. It's still going to be Andy Reid. I understand the amount of success he's had throughout his career in the NFL, but can you help us comprehend why is it when there has been success in recent years, letting offensive coordinators call the plays, yet for whatever reason, he's going to remain the play caller going into 2018? Why is that?
I mean, he never does. That's just Andy being Andy. It's part of the deal. And I think sometimes we can miss the forest for the trees. And Andy Reid is one of the best coaches in the NFL right now. And I feel confident in that. I know you're going to have listeners who completely disagree with that because they look at playoff losses. You still got to the playoffs, which when Andy Reid came to the Chiefs, this is a team that had the number one pick not that long ago and had struggled. And so I look at his foundation and the fingerprints that he has on the team and on this roster, and understanding all the things that Andy does, from coaching to the player evaluation, the say he has in the draft and in free agency and trades. I think it's really impressive, all the different things that he's able to do at a high level. Now, does he maybe need to loosen the reins a little bit on play calling? Yeah, I mean, and I said that last year, and they went on, they had that nice run when Nagy was calling plays that, okay, like, the offense is being aggressive and we're taking downfield shots and things are looser. But I think, when the pressure mounts, I think Andy wants to be in control, and he's earned that right to be. Like you said, all the success that he's had, going back to even Green Bay as a coordinator to where he is now. I mean, the guy probably looks around the room, and no disrespect to any of those other offensive coordinators, but he probably feels at some point like, I'm the best offensive coordinator in this room. This is my team. I want to call the shots. So, hopefully we do see more of Eric Bieniemy's influence, and they are more aggressive this year. I've heard all the stories about they're going to implement more of the spread offense. They're going to try to get some things that are familiar for Pat Mahomes and take advantage of his mobility and his arm strength and his athleticism. But I think we're all waiting to see what that's going to look like.
Matt Miller of Bleacher Report joining us here on the Chiefs Zone podcast. Matt, anytime I have a guest on, if we have the time for it, I'd like to take a question from some of the listeners, if there are one or two good ones. And there was an interesting one. I didn't even think of even asking you this. This one comes from David on the Facebook page at facebook.com/Farzin Vousoughian. He wanted to talk about the running backs. He wanted me to ask you if you think that the Chiefs are going to lean a little heavy on the running backs. And I'll even add maybe a little bit more to that, because the Chiefs added Kerwin Williams, Damian Williams. They let go of Akeem Hunt, who failed a physical recently. Yeah, sure, you've got Kareem Hunt. He's going to be your starter, but Charkandrick West, he's a guy who I thought did well as a backup running back last year. Spencer Ware, he suffered that injury in the preseason, and we don't know exactly how long he'll be out for. It's going to be a very interesting group, and the two Williams guys I mentioned, those are not guys fighting for a roster spot. Those are guys who can provide depth on an NFL roster at that position. I'm curious if you think one of the returning running backs could be one of the odd guys out in 2018. Do you think that could be the case? Who do you think that could be, if so?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it is West at the end of the day, just because, like you said, of the people they've signed and looking, down the road at contracts and things like that. But, none of these players is making a lot of money. I think if we looked at, how much is each running back depth charts being paid, the Chiefs are still going to be incredibly low because they stole Kareem Hunt in the draft. And even signing Kerwin Williams, I think he would be considered a guy that's like, okay, that's a name we've known because he's been around, he played with Arizona. If he doesn't make the team, I don't think anyone would be shocked. Damian Williams obviously has some talent. And I liked him a decent amount coming out of college, coming out of Oklahoma, but there's a reason that he's been available. And so I look at guys like that and say, okay, we know these names or remember these players, but how quickly are they going to acclimate to the offense? And I think the one thing that these moves say is they are, trying to look for someone who can help a little bit on third down and someone who can help in pass protection in situations like that. But, I think, like you said, with Spencer Ware, it's all about timetables. We know Kareem Hunt is going to be the guy, and I expect we'll see a fun job in training camp between the rest of them. And actually, like Darrell Williams, the UDFA they picked up from LSU a decent amount. So there's going to be a nice little running back competition that people can watch in training camp.
Matt, I want to ask you about the AFC West because there are a lot of changes being made this offseason. Pat Mahomes, of course, the new quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. John Gruden, after spending so many years in the broadcast booth, now going back to coaching, and he's going to be with the Oakland Raiders. The Broncos are kind of interesting with Vance Joseph. I think there are a lot of questions about what kind of an improvement they can make. And the Chargers, when the Chiefs ran into a brick wall midway through the 2017 season, the Chargers and Raiders caught up, and the Chargers were the team that really seemed to make the most noise and threaten the Chiefs to take over the AFC West. Fortunately, from a Chiefs fan's perspective, that didn't happen. But I think they definitely put the AFC West on notice that they can compete with the rest. I'm curious, what's your take on the AFC West, and who do you think will come out on top at the end of the year?
Well, I still think the Chiefs come out on top. Just looking at it, I think the Broncos are going to be down unless Vance Joseph proves he can coach a heck of a lot better than he did last year. Excuse me. I look at Oakland, and I'm not sure that I trust John Gruden as a head coach, especially after a lot of the moves they've made in the offseason. I'm kind of left scratching my head. I look at the Chargers as probably the best contender for that title in the AFC West, but that's still a team that I think is figuring things out, especially, some changing parts on the offensive line. They got to stay healthy. That's always one of the most hurt teams in the NFL, but there is a lot of talent there. And they added a heck of a player in Derwin James in the draft. They've got some speed on offense. They got two young offensive linemen who are coming up. So I would look at the Chargers as like maybe a team that could figure it out and make a run at it. But it seems like they do that every year where they'll have like a stretch of really good games and then somebody gets hurt and they kind of fall off and end up in the middle of the road. But I think the Chiefs is still in a good position if Mahomes plays like we all think he can and lives up to where he was drafted and lives up to a lot of the hype we've heard coming out of Kansas City, then I think they should be the favorite.
Matt, before we let you go, of course I mentioned you're on BleacherReport.com. That's where a lot of your work is. But I know you do some stuff outside of the website. You've got your social media on Facebook and Twitter. You've also got the podcast that you mentioned earlier on. How can fans interact with you, follow you on social media, and how can they access these podcasts?
Yeah, man. I mean, everyone can follow on Twitter at NFL Draft Scout. Like you said, I have a podcast that is 2 episodes per week and maybe going to 3. That was something we played with during the draft week. So Stick to Football, you can follow it on Twitter or Instagram at Stick to Football. You can download it through Apple Podcasts, and obviously it fits there in the Bleacher Report app too. So it's not just your standard football podcast. We try to have a lot of fun. We definitely talk a lot of barbecue and beer and some Royals baseball and a lot of different things to try to keep it light, especially in the summer.
Hey, are you going to any Royals games this year, or have you gone to any Royals games this year in KC?
Yeah, I've already been to 2 this year, so but hopefully I'll get up to a couple more. I try to avoid Kaufman once it hits like 90, So yeah. I might be back in like September when it hopefully cools off a little bit. So no, I've actually gone to 2, was just there, I guess, a week ago for a Friday night game. So one of my favorite places to be during the summer, but as y'all know, it's just too damn hot in Kansas City to sit outside for a day game.
Yeah, no question about it. It's crazy this time of the year. The weather's starting to heat up. I know we had a crazy spring with the temperatures, but it's starting to heat up now. And, the Royals, they've showed a little bit of improvement lately. But, man, it is hard to want to go out there, especially when the product isn't as good at the moment, unfortunately. But nonetheless, Matt Miller, he is great product. So are his articles over at the BleacherReport.com. Matt, definitely appreciate the time. I know you're a very busy guy. You do a lot of radio hits across the country. You're one of the more requested guys out there, so I definitely appreciate you making time for us, and hopefully we can talk to you again before the regular season kicks off.
Sounds great, man. I appreciate you having me on.